Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Even If Project Podcast. I'm Christina, and I'm so glad you guys are here with me today. Easter weekend. I feel like I want to ask you guys how yours is. I know you guys won't answer me. You're just a camera as far as right now, but I just feel like I need to ask you guys how yours was. Mine was really good, honestly. We did a little egg hunt for our son, which he's at that age right now where he talks, but it's not like full blown talking yet, if that makes sense. So he doesn't fully understand the egg hunt, but he's in that stage where he's just living his best life and trying to collect all the eggs and do whatever he can, and I'm all for it. But Good Friday, honestly, is what has been really sitting with me lately. This year, with the gym that I'm going to, we did a weighted barbell walk for Good Friday, and it was 600 meters. Some people did a mile. I just did the 600 meters, but you basically carried a barbell with you, and it was a certain weight or higher, and it was just to symbolize like just a tiny fraction of what Jesus went through while carrying the cross. So I did that this year, and I just want to be clear, I did not go heavy whatsoever. This is the first year I've ever done it, and I was not trying to be a hero by any means since it was my first time, but I've actually been having really bad neck pain lately, and I'm still trying to figure out if it's the pillow that I'm using when I sleep, which is this whole other thing that I'm dealing with right now. But having that barbell on my shoulders for 600 meters with neck pain already happening and bothering me was genuinely really hard. And I just kept thinking the whole time, this is nothing compared to what he actually carried. And it just kind of wrecked me, honestly, because it's not really just the physical weight of the cross. It was the weight of everything that night on what it meant, the betrayal, the people he loved falling apart around him. What was coming on the other side of that walk? And now, here we are, right after Easter, right after the resurrection, and we are about to go back into that room, right to that table, back to that table, the night before everything we just celebrated actually happened. And I think this is really special timing because I know a lot of churches and studies and stuff that you guys have probably listened to or been a part of before this have probably gone over all of this before Easter. And I was actually debating on whether I wanted to kind of speed things up to do that. But I kind of like the idea of being able to hear about it from other places and then be able to come back to it and already having like a fresh start on what we're about to get into, kind of going over it at a different pace or going over it at a different interpretation and seeing what you guys think based on everything you've heard and what I say and whatever. But you already know how the story ends, obviously. You just celebrate it. You know Sunday morning happened. You know the tomb was empty. You know grace won. But the people sitting in that room that night did not know any of that yet. And before we get into it, I'm just going to say the same thing that I say every single time. I'm not a Bible expert. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a theologian by any means. I didn't go to seminary. I am just a girl with her Bible open and neck pain, apparently, that is very sensitive to both pillows and barbells. And I am just trying to figure this out right alongside you. So if you're newer to faith or the Bible feels a little overwhelming sometimes, you are exactly in the right place. I try to take it slow with you guys here. We try to break everything down. We try not to use any churchy words or leave anything unexplained. So if you ever don't understand something I say, don't understand a word that we use, just let us know in the comments. We can help each other out, I promise. And if you ever say something, or if I ever say something that does not sit right with you, drop a comment, leave a message. We can learn together around here, and I love that about this community. So if you have not listened to the last week's episode, I think it's actually 2 weeks ago because last week I didn't record one, but we are in John 13:18 through 30. That was the last episode, and that is where Jesus was sitting at the table and he named the person that was about to betray him. And Judas, who was taken over by Satan, got up with the bread and walked out into the night. And we talked about what it looks like when someone slowly drifts away from the light. Go back and check that one out if you can, because it sets up everything for where we are today and what we're about to read today perfectly. But I have my Bible open, I have my coffee nearby, and let's go in and get into it today. So before We read. I just want to make sure you can picture exactly where we are again. We are still in that upper room, still the same night, still the same table. Judeus just walked out the door. And the moment he leaves, everything in the room, like the air changes, because now it is just Jesus and the 11 disciples who stayed. And Jesus begins with what is honestly one of the most tender and intimate conversations in the entire Bible. He knows the cross is hours away. He knows what is coming for him. He knows that the people sitting around the table are about to have the worst night of their lives, and they don't even see it coming yet. And instead of pulling away or shutting down or spending his last few hours focused on himself, he turns to the people still sitting at that table, and he just starts pouring everything he has into them. Now, here is something that I think makes this passage really special to read right after Easter. You already know how the story ends. Like I said, you just celebrated it. You know the tomb was empty Sunday morning. You know the resurrection happened. You know that grace won. But the 11 people still sitting in that room right now don't know any of that yet. All they know is that something heavy is happening, and they don't fully understand it. The teacher is saying things that feel like goodbye. The mood is heavy and confusing and a little frightening, honestly. And into all of that, Jesus speaks. And what he says in these few verses is so important. So let's go in and read it. Let's get into part 1. Today we're going to be finishing up John 13. We're going to be reading John 13, 31 through 38. We're going to be starting with verses 31 through 33. It's going to be a shorter one today. I am reading from my CSB Bible, the Christian Standard Bible. I have the She Reads Truth. It is just a translation of the Bible that I find is really easy to read and understand and is great for studying. If you have a different version, that's totally okay. It might sound a little bit different, but the meaning is still going to be the same. 31 through 33 says, "When he had left, Jesus said, 'Now the Son of Man is glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself and will glorify him at once. Little children, I am with you a little while longer. You will look for me, and just as I told the Jews, so now I tell you, where I'm going, you cannot come.'" So, the very first thing Jesus says after Judas walked out is, "Now the Son of Man is glorified, and God is glorified in him." And I just want to pause here for a second because that is such a surprising thing to say in this moment. Judas just walked out the door to go betray him. The cross is hours away. It's literally so close. And Jesus says, "Now is the Son of Man glorified." Now, right now, in this moment, not after the resurrection, not after the empty tomb, not after everything gets better and makes sense again, now. And I think that it's really important for us to sit with this because the word glorified, let me just explain that really quick because it is one of those words that gets thrown around a lot in church settings, and I feel like it can kind of lose its meaning or get forgotten for what it actually means. Glorified basically means revealed for who he truly is. It's like the weight and beauty and truth of who Jesus is about to be put on full display. And Jesus is saying, the cross is not a defeat. The cross is the moment everything I am gets fully revealed, which is honestly such a completely different way of seeing it in the natural world and what we would actually see it as. Because if we're being real here, if I'm being real here, a cross does not look like glory whatsoever. It looks like suffering. It looks like loss. It looks like things going terribly wrong. We know how Rome and how the government controlled people by using this torture chamber. And Jesus is standing there saying, no, this is exactly the moment. And then he says something really tender. He calls his disciples little children, which, if you have never noticed that before, just sit with it for a second. Jesus, the Son of God, hours away from the cross, and he looks at the people sitting around the table and calls them little children, not followers, not students, not servants, little children. There's so much warmth in that, so much care. Like a parent looking at their kids before something hard is about to happen and just wanting to hold them for a second longer. And then he tells them, "I am only going to be with you a little while longer. And where I'm going, you cannot come right now." Which sounds confusing and a little scary, honestly. And for the disciples in the room, it absolutely was. They did not fully understand what he was meaning yet, but we do, because we just came from Easter. We know where he's going. We know what the other side of this looks like. And knowing the ending makes these words hit so much differently. He's not abandoning them. He's going ahead of them. And there's a really big difference between those two things. So let's get into our first reflection question. Is there something in your life right now that looks like loss or defeat or things going wrong, but could actually be the moment something important is being revealed? Because Jesus reframes the cross completely here. What looks like the worst possible thing is actually the moment of his greatest glory. And I think that is such a needed reminder for everyday life. Because most of us are really good at seeing the hard things in our own lives and assuming it means something went wrong. But what if it did not go wrong? What if this is actually the moment? What if the thing that feels the hardest right now is actually the thing that is going to reveal something really important on the other side of it? And I'm not saying hard things are not hard. They are. I'm not saying pain is not real. It absolutely is. But Jesus standing in the room hours before the cross and saying, now is the moment of glory. That changes the way I look at the hard things in my own life, honestly. And I hope it does a little bit for you too. So let's go to move on to part 2. We're going to be reading verses 34 through 35. And that says, I give you a new command. Love one another just as I have loved you. You are also to love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. So, right in the middle of everything, the heaviness, the confusion, the disciples not fully understanding what is happening, Jesus stops and gives them a commandment. Now, a commandment just means a direct instruction. It means a rule, something he is specifically telling them to do. And here's what he says. Love one another. That is it. Love one another as I have loved you. I know that sounds simple, maybe even a little obvious, like, okay, yes, be nice to people, we got it, but okay. But I want to slow down here because I think we skip past this one way too fast. We hear it in church or we hear it when it's being said and we kind of just let it go in one ear and out the other. And as soon as we walk out the doors, we forget it. Jesus does not say love one another. He says love one another as I have loved you. And we just spent the last 2 episodes watching how Jesus loves. He loved knowing he was going to be betrayed. He loved the person who was about to hand him over. He got on his knees and washed his feet. He called them little children while his heart was heavy and the cross was hours away. That is the standard he is setting. Not just being nice when it's easy, not just loving people who love you back, not just showing up for the people who deserve it. Loving the way Jesus loves, which is honestly one of the hardest things he ever asks of us. And then he says something really important about why this matters. He says, by this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. Not by how much you know the Bible, not by how many Christian things you post, not how often you show up to church, not how loud you are about your faith, but how you love people. That is what gives it away. And I think this is so worth sitting with for a second, because I think a lot of us, especially if you're newer to faith and still trying to figure out what it even looks like to follow Jesus in your real everyday life, this can feel like pressure to have the right answers or to say the right things or to look a certain way or to act a certain way or to know everything or to feel like you actually belong in this whole thing. And Jesus is sitting here saying, actually, the thing that marks you as mine is much simpler than all of that. It is just love. The way you treat your coworker who gets on your nerves, the way you show up for your friend who keeps making the same mistakes, the way you talk to the people in your life when you are tired and stretched thin and you have nothing left to give. That is where it shows up. Not on Sunday morning, on a random Tuesday when nobody is watching and love is harder to notice. And let's go and get into before I go on, because I'm starting to go on already, before we do that, let's go and get into our next reflection question. If the way you loved people this past week was the only evidence someone had of your faith, what would that conclude? Now, This is not meant to make you feel guilty. Genuinely not that, honestly, because this can be a harder question. But I think this is one of those questions that has a way of cutting right through all of that noise and getting to what actually matters. Love is not just a feeling. It is not just a warm emotion that you have towards people you already like. The way Jesus describes it here, it is a choice, a practice, something you do even when it costs you something. And the really good news is you don't have to be perfect at it. You just have to keep choosing it. You just have to keep trying. So let's go on. We're going to read our final part here. We're going to read verses 36 through 38. And that says, Lord, Simon Peter said to him, where are you going? Jesus answered, where I am going, you cannot follow me now, but you will follow later. Lord, Peter asked, why can't I follow you now? I will lay down my life for you. Jesus replied, will you lay down your life for me? Truly, I tell you, a rooster will not crow until you have denied me 3 times. Okay, so Peter, I've said it before, Peter is one of my favorites, but Peter, be completely and totally Peter, cannot let what Jesus said go without asking a follow-up question. And I'm glad he did, but Jesus says, where I'm going, you cannot follow me now. And Peter immediately says, Lord, where are you going? Which, same Peter, same. Like, the room is heavy and tender, and Jesus is saying these incredibly significant things, and Peter's hand shoots straight up like, wait, where are you going exactly? I have a question here. And Jesus tells him, where I'm going, you cannot follow me now, but you will follow me later. And Peter, bless him, is not satisfied with that answer. I mean, neither am I. If this was before everything happened, he says, Lord, why can't I follow you now? I will lay down my life for you. And I also want you to sit with that for a second, because Peter means that with his entire heart. He's not performing. He's not trying to look good for this group. He genuinely believes that in this moment that he will die for Jesus. And here is the thing. Peter is not lying. He's not being fake. He loves Jesus deeply and truly, and that love is completely real. He just does not know himself as well as he thinks he does yet. And Jesus, with so much gentleness, tells him the truth. He says, will you lay down your life for me? I tell you the truth, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Now, if you know the rest of the story, and if you just came from Easter weekend, you probably have some idea. Peter does exactly that. 3 times that night, he tells people he does not know Jesus. The thing Peter was most confident about would never happen is exactly what happens. And I think this is such an honest and important moment for all of us, because how many times have we said, I would never do that, or I would never be that person, or I would never walk away from something I said I believed in. And then life gets in the way, and scary and pressure is on, and we find out we are a lot more human than we thought we were, and a lot more over our heads with this whole thing. And Peter is not a bad person in this moment. He's just human. He's a human person. He loves Jesus genuinely and deeply, and is about to find out that love alone does not always hold up when things get really hard. And here's what I love about this. Jesus does not say this to shame Peter whatsoever. He does not say it to embarrass him in front of everybody. He says it to prepare him, because on the other side of Peter's denial, Jesus still restores him completely. He still uses him. He still calls him, and he still loves him. The denial is not the end of Peter's story. And whatever you have done, whatever you have denied or walked away from or said you would never do that again, or you said you would never do in general, it is not the end of yours either. So let's move on to our final reflection question for today. Is there an area of your life where you've been really confident, I will never do that, I will never be that person, and has that confidence ever let you down? Because Peter's story is such a real and honest reminder that confidence in ourselves is not the same thing as being rooted in something solid. Peter was confident, and confidence is not a bad thing whatsoever. Confidence is amazing, but confidence in yourself alone, without staying anchored into Jesus, has a way of crumbling exactly when you need it most. The invitation today is not to beat yourself up about the ways that you have fallen short. It's just to be honest about how human you are. Because Jesus already knows. No matter if you've said it out loud or not, he already knows your heart in this. He told Peter what was going to happen before it happened. He was not surprised at Peter's denial, and he is not surprised by yours either. So here is where I keep landing with this entire passage. This was a short one, but 3 things happen in these 8 verses. Jesus reframes the cross as glory. He gives a commandment to love the way he loves. And he gently tells Peter the truth about what is coming. And what strikes me most about all 3 of these things is this. Jesus is doing all of it for them, not for himself. He is hours away from the cross. He is carrying more weight than any of us will ever fully understand. And he is spending his last hours at that table, making sure the people he loves are prepared, are anchored, seen, known. He reframes the cross that they will not lose hope when it happens. He gives them something to hold on to, love each other, so they will not fall apart when he is gone. And he tells Peter the truth, not to crush him, but to prepare him for the grace that is coming on the other side of this failure. That is who Jesus is, and that is who he is for you right now. Whatever you are carrying today, whatever feels heavy or confusing or like things went wrong, he's not standing over you with a scoreboard. He is sitting at the table with you, preparing you, anchoring you, loving you in a way that does not run out. And just like Peter, whatever you have denied or walked away from or fallen short of, he already knew, he already knows, and he already has a plan for what's coming next. You are not too far gone. You are not too much. You are just human. And he is really, really good at working with human. So, if today's episode meant something to you, if something in this landed differently because of where you are right now, would you just share it with someone who's going through that too, or you think might benefit from that? If you are brand new here, hello, welcome. I'm so glad you found this little place of the internet. Come find us on Instagram at the Even If Project. There is a link in the bio that goes to a Google Sheet where I keep all the reflection questions updated every single week. That is where I keep this conversation going between episodes. So come hang out with us over there. There's a Spotify playlist in the bio with some good Christian songs. There is I don't know, just different things that you can look through. There's also the place where I sell t-shirts for this company, or for not this company, this isn't a company, but for the Even If Project, there's t-shirts that have been made that are up on a site as well. But next time we are moving into John 14, which is where Jesus is something that is probably one of the most well-known verses in the entire Bible, something that a lot of people have heard, even if they have never opened the Bible in their entire life. And I cannot wait to get into it with you. So go ahead and bring your coffee, your Bible, and an open heart, and I'll meet you guys right back here next week. I love you all so much.